Welcome back to the Daily Vlog. Dr. Duizer here. Today on the vlog, our first meetup for our group Low Carb Vancouver. Today was the first time we have met as a group, and it was a great meetup. Lots of interesting conversation about the low carb diet. I gave a little presentation about how low do you need to go for weight loss, and we talked a bit about the difference between very low carb, moderate low carb, and mild low carb. Continue on, listen to our meetup discussion to see how low you need to go to actually achieve your weight loss goals. So I'll just throw you into our discussion. We missed the first bit of it, but you can just jump right into the first slide now. So I hope you enjoy Low Carb Vancouver Meetup number 1, available now on the Daily Vlog. Let's get into it. How their blood sugar is going up and down with every food they're consuming. So I go in there, I'm sitting with the medical director of Diabetes BC, a cardiologist, and a patient with diabetes. And they take their device, they plug it in the computer, and then they say, okay, your blood sugar is doing this here and this here, what were you eating? And they simply make changes to foods. Geez, this is naturopathic. How can I get involved? And then the company gives me unlimited number of these meters to give to diabetics. So now all of a sudden, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, cardiovascular disease is like driving my practice forward because I'm able to track people's blood sugar every moment of every day for 2 weeks for free. So that's kind of why I'm so excited about this. It does change lives. It's so much easier than pricking your finger. And it's like really inspiring to see changes. People coming off of insulin like crazy. So anyways, that's my passion behind it. The vision for the group is really just to help each other achieve the diet. So like if you are having success cutting your carbs out and you have like this tip or that tip, please share it, okay? We'll have lots of time at the end to talk about it. Was mentioning to the group that was here initially, I see a lot of cancer patients and we do very low calorie or very low carb diets with those patients. We do a metabolic type therapy with them to reduce insulin, and I'm just not very good at giving them diet advice. And they're better at sharing their own recipes. Yeah.
What are the carbs good food?
What type of foods are they? Well, they're in many foods. They're really only not in meat, protein, and oils. So they're in everything, but they're at different degrees.
Oh, I see.
And then the level that they're in different foods can cause blood sugar spikes more significantly in some foods and less in others. So for example, like a piece of bread, if it's really thinly cut, can be like 23 grams, but a thick one can be 40 grams. And in terms of the way it spikes, a white loaf or a white piece of bread can spike your blood sugar really quick, and a whole grain one will be slower. So it's a bit intricate, but the point here is like, don't think about it as a complicated thing. We try to think about it as how do we keep it as low as possible while still getting the benefit of the carbs. Because I'm not a keto guy, I'm not a cut it out completely, because I think there's nutrient value, big time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my bit about it. Yes, of course.
So are you talking like between 50 and 100 grams?
Depends.
If under 50 can go into keto.
Usually, absolutely.
So are you talking like 50 to 150?
For weight loss, 50 to 100 for weight loss. Yeah, we'll talk about it today. The only thing I'm gonna present is one study with the different rates, and you'll see. It's like anything under 135 is virtually the same for weight loss as keto, which keto is less than 35. So
I can't lose weight on that high carbs.
yes.
No.
So everyone's
I have
different.
to be around 50 or below.
Absolutely.
To lose weight.
And that's where the holistic approach comes in. Like if we look to Dr. Fung, the nephrologist out of Toronto who wrote the Obesity Code. Do we know each other?
No.
Okay, so you look familiar. So the idea here is that if we look
Unless you went to the keto group.
I did
I
not.
belong to the keto group.
Awesome.
From once a month.
That's great. Oh, great. So the difference, like he breaks down the holistic approach in his videos online, kind of what naturopaths have been doing for a long time. And in his book, The Obesity Code, I believe he reviews it. But he made an interesting point the other day, which is when we look at this holistic approach, like sleep affects weight loss, hormones decrease insulin sensitivity if they're too low, mood changes and other macronutrients can affect it. But the main one is stress. So when we have low hormones plus stress, we have reduced insulin sensitivity and the liver is just pumping out sugar. So you have to go lower than 50. And that's where it becomes, the holistic approach becomes even more appropriate. So I'll say a lot of blanket statements, but yeah, stop me at any time because everyone's so different. 100%. Okay, so let's move forward. Does that work? It works. Okay, so here's my background. I went to the Royal Military College and did a bachelor's degree in chemistry and psychology. So I have an intimate interest in how our biochemistry affects our brains and our bodies overall. And now I'm just obsessed with hyperinsulinemia, just the effect that high insulin has on our bodies, which is why I'm wearing a sticker even though I don't have diabetes. My two roles here, I run a weight loss program online that's low carb, damihealth.com, that my wife created and now I'm the medical director for. And I'm the medical director at this clinic where most people have either cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or autoimmune disease. That's pretty much all we do is help people who have a diagnosis get well. And now my clinical focus, like I said, is so heavy on diabetes because I have become a bit obsessed about it. So I think I'm a good fit for this because I have a background in athletics, and then I gained a ton of weight after college. So I was doing like 2 hours a day at university playing basketball, and I was like really lean and fit and all these things. And then transitioning to being a naval officer, I gained 50 pounds, like just right away. And then it wasn't until I started doing 13 hours a night of intermittent fasting that I lost the weight. So it was very simple for me because it ended up being just eating too much food before bed, even though it was healthy stuff. But now that I'm wearing a blood sugar monitor, I can tell you exactly why it happens. When I eat healthy, my resting blood sugar is 4.7 when I'm sleeping. At Kids Fest, I had a muffin and a cinnamon bun, and that destroyed my blood sugar. But I never got back to my baseline blood sugar for 2 to 3 days. So my sleeping blood sugar was 5.2, 5.3 for 2 nights. So you can think, if that's the difference in sugar, the insulin is very different, and insulin is what drives weight gain. So even 1 day of high carb for me takes 2 to 3 days to recover from, and I have a high insulin sensitivity, like I exercise 5 times a week.
So you only had one muffin
And one cinnamon bun, and I exercised, I worked out, I did all the right stuff, and I never got back to 4.7 until Wednesday.
See, that's why we go to the Finnish home, have one of these bullet, sort of a cinnamon bun, and yeah, I can just feel expanding.
It's significant. So you say, geez, I gain a lot of water weight when I eat carbs. Well, what happens, there's a sensor in the kidney for insulin. When the kidney sees it, it's, oh shoot, we need to hold on to things. And the main thing it holds on to is sodium. And then your blood pressure goes up and your water weight goes up. So that's why when people go keto, they shed water weight like crazy. They get dehydrated, they get crampy, and they look really lean and really good. And it's probably good for many things, but hard to do long term. But some people have great success with it. I'm suggesting that we can manage at 50 grams to 100 grams of carbs. The dehydration is minimal, and the sodium loss is actually really helpful because it brings the blood pressure down, you feel lean and trim, and it's all good.
This knäckebröd that we eat, the Swedish knäckebröd.
Okay.
Familiar with?
No, I'm not.
No,
I wish I was. Sounds great.
a hard thing, and that's, we don't eat any bread other than a bun.
And again, these things are good. It's the added sugar that gets us, Like there's carbs because it's made with a grain, but the question is how much added sugar is in there? This added sugar drives it up.
There is no sugar added to knäckebröd.
Oh, nice.
Well,
Yeah.
they've done it forever during the war times because it's dry.
Right.
It's bread, rye bread mostly, and then whole corn or whatever.
Right.
Is it
And
kind of like, was it crisp bread?
Yeah,
it's a crisp bread. Well, it's a
Crisp bread,
exactly
yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing for breakfast, basically.
and that's,
Covered in olive oil.
yeah.
And so it's like 23 grams of carbs, and I get like a half a point spike, very subtle. And the fats from the oils allows the energy to be sustainable all day. So it's those unique things that we find from testing blood sugar, whether it be finger pricks or monitoring.
See, we don't eat any muffin stuff like this, but our roommate, he brings us these muffins and ice cream. And
Definitely.
We like it.
For sure. Oh, people bring me chocolate. Oh my goodness. You should see my blood sugar when people would bring me chocolate. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're here to learn about low carb and how to make it as effective as possible for everybody. We're going to meet once a month, and you sign up either here or at meetup.com, and you can come, and we might need a bigger space, but who knows. Yes, one topic per month. If you have ideas for topics, please let me know. Here's today's topic. And I'll stop here. That didn't work. If you have suggestions for where you think the group should go, like I have some people interested in biohacking the body and going hyper low sugar. I have some people only interested in weight loss. I have some people interested in disease prevention. If you think it should go a certain way, and you'd like to hear from me about topics just whenever on a Saturday for free, you just tell me, okay? Because I have a lot of opinions, most of them based on science. Okay, so today's topic, we're trying to make weight loss make weight loss easy. How low should we go? Should we go keto or not? Should we be high fat, high protein or not? Atkins is high protein, and unfortunately, many people don't know this, but too much protein raises mTOR, which is an inflammatory molecule that can be hard on the body, although we need it for recovery. Too much protein will eventually become turned into carbohydrates. Like there's a theory that we can only absorb 25 to 30 grams at a time. If you eat more than that and you're not burning, it's possible that your liver can turn that into glucose, which will spike your insulin. And we see that with people. We see that. So it's important to watch out for that. And then in terms of high fats, keto is like 80% fat. My suggestion is to be somewhere between 40 and 50%. Getting a lot of calories from healthy fats. But the place where people go wrong is they just end up eating too many saturated fats. And for certain people with genetic backgrounds, saturated fat really hard on the heart. So my wife has an FTO SNP. She actually have 5 of them with, and there's pretty good clinical data that shows when you have this one SNP for this one genomic presentation, when you have saturated fat, you gain weight. And if she sees saturated fat, she gains weight. So it's everyone's a bit different. Did you have a question? Either?
So how many grams of protein would you say? I mean, everybody's different.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so if you're going for longevity, it's low. If you're exercising a lot and you're going for recovery, it's 0.8 to 1 gram per kg. So usually I say if someone's exercising like 5 times a week, if they're doing weights or full body weight exercises, I'm going 1 to 1, as long as it's not too much meat. So finding the same type of protein or the same amount of protein but from vegetable or sources that might have a little bit of carbohydrates would be appropriate. So for example, if you weigh like 60 kg, then we try to do 60 grams, but you'd get 10 of that from a scoop of hemp seeds. You'd get 15 of that from some beans, and then it'd be a little bit of carb. Does that make sense? And then you get 1 serving from protein, from meat. So that's my bit. But at a minimum, 0.5 to 0.6 grams per kg, so like 30 or 40 a day, and at a maximum 1 to 1. Unless you're an athlete, then it's like 1.5 or 2 to 1. It's different. Fair?
So what's your breakdown of the macros? Would it be 40 to 50 healthy fats and then?
Yeah, 20 to 25% carbs and 20 to 25% protein. Yeah, so the study I'm going to present for weight loss is 15% carbs. So for long-term wellness, I think 20 to 25% carbs is appropriate because you still get the benefit of the nutrients if you're absorbing well, you have good digestion, you still get support for your probiotics, you still have good bowel movements. Like lower than that, things start to slow down and it's a problem. Okay? Okay, so let's go through how low should we go then. Okay, so this is a study we'll talk about today. Low carb diets differing in carbohydrate restriction, improve cardiometabolic anthropometric markers in healthy adults. This was a randomized clinical trial, and they had 3 groups. There was 25 people in each group, and they did 5% of the diet from carbs. They did 15% from the diet from carbs, and one group did 25% of their diet from carbs. And over the course of 12 weeks, the keto group, the 5%, they lost 9 pounds. The 15% lost 8.6 pounds. So that statistically, it was considered exactly the same. And then the group that did 25%, they lost 6.5 pounds, which ended up being, I think, slightly statistically significant, as a little bit less than the other 2 groups. All of the other markers did not reach significance. So the changes in cholesterol and sugar and insulin, there wasn't statistical significance met with only 25 people in each group. So we look at this study as a weight loss study. Like what actually happens over 12 weeks if you cut your carbs. If you go to keto, you probably lose weight. If you just go very low carb but not keto, you'll probably lose the exact same amount of weight without the side effects. So the most common side effect when someone goes very low carb is their adrenaline goes up. They can feel their heart in their chest. They feel very dehydrated. They can feel extra stress. And with just low carb in general, you don't really feel that. You're still hungry, still tough to make a big change because we just have carbs everywhere. It's all the time. but the side effects are minimal. So this, because the two groups were so similar, it looks like if this was a huge study, like thousands of people, it would be very, very much similar. Very low carb versus just low carb in general will probably lose the same amount of weight over 12 weeks. Now, the reason they lost weight was restriction. So I'm obsessed with the holistic approach, like we have to look at these other things, but restriction is essential for weight loss. You have to cut calories. In this particular place, they cut calories from carbs, which I think has overall benefit otherwise. And that's really my focus of this group. Like, I just did a post the other day on YouTube about sugar from liquids. After you hit 10 grams a day, which is like one kombucha, and if you go up and up and up and up, it increases the risk of cancer significantly. As you increase the sugar from fluids, the cancer risk goes up and up and up. Like a can of pop is 35 grams, a can of kombucha is anywhere from 5 to 12. Some of them are listing now as one serving being half the bottle, and they'll say 5 grams. It's still liquid sugar. If you drink the whole bottle, you're getting 10. So this is really, really important. Liquid sugar is probably the worst if we're talking about insulin release and long-term wellness, because insulin is the driver of disease, because we just have so much of it around all the time. So when we look at this type of diet, we think, oh, geez, we don't need to be keto. Now, everyone's different. These were average weight losses, so we still have to be specific, like in your case, you know, like we have to figure out.
I think I was probably having too much protein and fat, to be honest. That's probably, if I cut my protein and fat, then I could have more carbs.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm willing to try a different approach.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I have found benefit in doing blood sugar testing, because if it really is insulin, we think it is, it tracks exactly with blood sugar with blood sugar testing. Mm-hmm. So if we know it's going up, like for example, I had when I was at Kids Fest, I had a Schweppes sugar-free, so it was sweetened with Ace K, an artificial sweetener. It took my blood glucose up 0.5 point. It shouldn't have done that. We have diabetics coming in who are drinking diet pop instead of pop. When they drink pop, they go up to 20. When they drink diet pop, it went up to 16. And I saw the data. They ate nothing else. So we are having these sugar swings. When you exercise, your blood sugar goes up, and it should come right back down. If you have a ton of carbs on board, it doesn't come down as quick. If you're less insulin sensitive, it doesn't come down as quick. So you have to get stronger and fitter over time. So it's very, very, it seems complicated because there's so many facets, but it's really not. It's like insulin sensitivity, I think, is the key. So that's why I'm doing a lot of bioidentical prescribing, you know, estrogen sensitizes the cells. I think it's awesome. Yeah, I try to do it as much as possible.
If you're coming in under 1, you're okay.
1.9, I'm okay with 1.9. Yeah, 1.9. So HOMA-IR is a measure of insulin resistance. It's the only way to do it with labs. Like usually they would do a very invasive insulin clamp, which gets into your bloodstream, which is it's a dangerous procedure and not necessary. But a HOMA-IR is like you do a blood sugar test and a fasting insulin. It's $25, and then there's a ratio to be calculated between the two, and you get to see how sensitive your cells are to that insulin.
Wow.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's so great. So I'm doing it with so many people, and we're seeing sometimes normal blood sugar but really high insulin. So it means the pancreas is working overboard. No wonder they can't lose weight. There's just so much insulin on board, but no diabetes, no worries, until eventually the pancreas gives out. And then when we see people with low, that's healthy, and we see people with high blood sugar and low insulin, which is diabetes, and usually the requirement for insulin.
What's a good fasting insulin?
A good fasting insulin, yeah, it's like below 70. Below 70, yeah. In our terms, in the U.S. terms, I believe it's below 8. They have different reference ranges or different units. But so if you're coming back with a blood sugar of like 5.0 and an insulin of 40 or 50, that's perfect. And then we test A1C to see what the blood sugar was over the course of 3 months. And optimal is below 5, but 5.5 and below is probably okay.
What do you think of 5.6?
5.6,
and I've been on low carb for a long time, so I was shocked.
yeah, 5.6 is annoying.
High.
Absolutely.
I have a huge family history of diabetes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
5.6 is annoying.
Wait, it's annoying when you've been on a low carb diet. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yes. So with a family history, it's possible to double down on insulin sensitivity. So I don't know what you've done, but what I usually do with people is find something we haven't done and do it, like prolonged fasting, like lots of weights, like these type of things, which definitely increase our sensitivity. Yeah, there's so many options. But yeah, A1C on a low carb of 5.6 is all it
The
is.
doctor wasn't worried about it, but I thought, I looked it up and I thought that's almost borderline pre-diabetic.
Yes. So the only the reason they're not annoyed with it is because the difference in health outcomes between 7 and 6 is minimal. So when we have a diabetic above 7, we're trying to get them below 7. But to go from 6.5 to 5.5 isn't a big difference in terms of longevity and cardiovascular disease and cancer. So don't stress about it.
I'm not stressing, it's just surprising when you're on a low carb diet. And then you get
Like
that.
we should be seeing a 4.5, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly, that's what I was expecting.
Definitely. So I'm doing one, and my average blood sugar is like 5.1. And I'm like stressing my body out here. I'm not eating, so it's hard. It's tough. I get it. But 5.6, not bad.
Is that the A1C or is
That's
that
right,
the
yeah.
fasting glucose?
A1C, yeah.
So mine came in at 5.6.
Yeah.
And my insulin's at 29.
But what was your fasting blood sugar?
5.5, I think.
5.5, yeah, it's fine. So what happens on the way to the lab is that your blood sugar can go up. There's something called the dawn effect.
Right.
When your cortisol goes up, your blood sugar goes up, and your insulin may not have caught up yet.
Right.
So for that blood sugar, we would expect your insulin just to be a touch higher, which would bring it down over the course of like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's nice to have a finger prick when you first wake up in the morning, or to wear one of these things so you can see. Like, if my daughter wakes me up, we're going from 5 to 5.5 immediately. If I'm driving to Life Labs, I'm going to 6.0. Just
Okay, so
even if I don't eat,
So when's a good time to measure then?
right away
If you're going into a lab.
upon waking.
Upon-
I know it's tough. So that's why it doesn't really work. So that's why we don't stress if it's like below 5.6. If it's below 6.0, it's not a panic. And it's worth looking at A1C. So since your A1C is 5.6, it's fine. Okay? So it's really tricky, and that's why you can't just go based on one fasting blood sugar. It's like, geez. Someone recently had a 6.0 who's like wicked fit and has never had a high blood sugar and eats very low carb, and they had a 6.0. And I'm like doing a consult for someone in Europe who has a 6.0 and they're panicking. I'm like, there's no way. It's just not possible. We've got to redo it. We'll redo it and see how it goes, because the last one was 5.4. So it's just, this is not a great test, which is why a lot of people do it in office. Like here we do it. If you ever want your blood sugar tested, you just show up and don't eat breakfast one morning at 9:30 and you can do it, okay? 9:25, like right before my day, okay? Anytime. Aren't carbohydrates good for us? Yes, they are. I think we need carbs. I think we do. We need fiber, right? Most complex carbohydrates are soluble fiber. They help you bulk your stool, bring water into the stool, make it nice and soft. We have a secondary absorption of minerals in the colon that's facilitated by fiber. And they are what make our probiotics grow and divide and stay in balance. We have to have carbohydrates. So there's lots of presentations being made now about very, very low carb and like keto, for example, and the effect on the microbiome. And it'll be interesting what comes out. What kind of probiotic imbalances are we going to get from going such into a low carb state? There are people trying to like biohack it with certain probiotic supplementation and things, but it's too early to know. The probiotics are very important to us for mood and immune system, and I don't know that we should be letting them go out of balance so easily by not supporting them with nutrient. So yeah, I'm not on board for cutting out completely. But what happens when you eat too much? Well, like first of all, they're just everywhere. Like if you've tried low carb before, you know that it's pretty tough. If you're out in the town and you don't have access to food, you're probably gonna have to fast, because it's hard to find something that has a very low carb ratio at a restaurant, for example. We're talking about carbs are in everything except meat and oils. So they're everywhere, and I think that probably the cause of chronic disease in North America is high insulin, and that's why I'm really passionate about it. I don't really have anything else to say. Mood alterations is important. Bless you, Anders. Do you want a tissue? You okay? The impact on mood. So you're probably familiar with blood sugar swings causing mood issues. Well, it's been well documented, and it's so incredibly prevalent. It's It's wild. And making simple changes if you're feeling anxious or depressed can provide lots of benefit. So the tricky thing with going low carb is it often will affect mood negatively in the first 2 days. Like if I'm going very low carb, I'm grumpy for 2 days, like wild. Day 3, still hungry but feeling good. And that's very, very common. If you're going into ketosis, for example, where you're going low carb for a long period of time, that can happen for 5 to 7 days, kind of at the 3-week mark. You can have what's called the keto flu, for example. But it can also happen at random times for other people. Like some people it happens right away. So fasting normally, which is low carb by definition because it's just nothing, people normally feel unwell for a couple days and then they start to feel very good. So in terms of mood relationship, all we have to think about is like how quickly are we getting the carbs and how are we dealing with it. And if you have problems with depression and anxiety, it's the first thing to knock off. So obesity, the main driver of obesity is insulin, which is mediated by carbs, and then hypertension, which I spoke about. When you eat too many carbs, your insulin goes up and causes you to hold on to sodium, which causes high blood pressure. And then on the cholesterol panel, the most sensitive thing to carbs is triglycerides, which is a combo of carbs and fat. And when you do fasting before a lipid test for a few days, triglycerides definitely come back a bit lower. Definitely. So the new measurement that we're looking at when it comes to cholesterol levels is the relationship between triglycerides and HDL, the good cholesterol. And if that ratio is favorable, then the risk is quite low. So if that ratio is less than 1, which means your triglycerides are super low, which means you're low carb in general, then regardless of your HDL, it's going to be pretty safe. So low carb means pretty safe on the heart long term. And it's because of this ratio. It's been documented recently. So triglycerides, insulin, A1C are what we like to look at. Oh, and I didn't talk about visceral fat. So a couple things related to cancer. So sugar in liquid I already spoke about, but obesity is implicated in 12 or 13 different cancers now as a main driver. It's almost up there with smoking. So we have this list of 10 or 12 things from the World Health Organization that we have to be cautious of. Smoking, of course, been on top of the list for a while. Processed meats are up there. Red meat is up there. Environmental toxins are up there. And obesity is up there. And it's a main driver. Now, what is the cause here? It's probably visceral fat. So visceral fat is the fat around our organs. It's really, really bad for them. And when you do decide to go low carb, when you notice that maybe the scale isn't changing significantly, but your size is shrinking, it's usually the visceral fat coming down, down. And that's very healthy long term. So visceral fat is implicated in cancer. And I think that's a really important point. So how do we define low carb? Well, I'm suggesting 15% of the diet, especially if you're trying to lose weight. If you're not trying to lose weight, I'm thinking 20 to 25%. And that's still considered low carb, considering Canada Food Guide, I believe, is still at 50%. Yeah, definitely. I know. It's a bit stressful when you go below 50% for the general population, which is probably the main reason. Carbs are inexpensive, easy to make, and readily available, and probably fine at 50%, as long as there's not that 50% is not reached through like fat and junk food. Then, but for optimal wellness, I think it needs to be this low. I really do. I'm on board, and that's why we started this thing. So we talked a little bit about the individual approach. We have to regulate energy. If you go low carb, you don't want to get tired. You want to have more energy. So some people will become tired in the first few days, and if it doesn't improve, there is investigation to be done. Like there needs to be more fat. For me, if it's coconut oil, like saturated fat, it's chest pain right away. If it's omega-3s, nuts and seeds, avocados, olive oil, there's no chest pain. And a lot of people will report that. So finding what works for you in terms of having enough calories to support your energy while still accomplishing your goals, really important. Okay, so medical need is a bit different. Like mostly now, if someone has active cancer, we're going into ketosis while still avoiding processed meats and red meat. If someone has autoimmune disease, we're doing short-term water fasts. like complete fasts. Sometimes then transitioning to a vegan diet that's low carb. Sometimes just going back to the regular diet and going back and forth. In weight loss, we have things like the 5-2 diet, which is 2 days a week going very, very low calorie. We have just generalized low calorie. We have 3-day water fasting. We have lots of different options. Intermittent fasting, longer than 13 hours sometimes is helpful for people. But there's lots of different approaches. And then, of course, you have to know what else you're eating and doing and how that supports your overall goals. So what does low carb look like? Like, let's say we're trying to stay within this range. So if we look at that study, keto was 35 grams. Well, 15% of that, we can think about 100 grams, right? Somewhere between 90 and 100. Here's how quickly things can add up. Like if you're eating a whole piece of fruit, like an apple, for example, you can hit 25. If you're having a banana, you can hit even higher than that. If you're having the slices of toast can range from 20 to 50. If I was a 2-slice of toast guy for 20 years, right? First thing in the morning, boom. No wonder I was a grumpy old man by the time I was 30. It's like, it happens. And I think it was mediated by this, because as soon as the shift was made, I was no longer that grumpy old man. 1 cup of brown rice, which is a staple in many people's diet around here, is even mine. And when we look at what 1 cup of brown rice looks like, that's like, doesn't look like much. We look at what 1 cup of pasta looks like. It just doesn't look like much. So looking at your plate and saying, okay, what is coming from grains and starches here, and then how many carbs am I getting from vegetables, and how are the different vegetables different? How are they different? Like, for example, on the glycemic index, carrots are close to the top, right? Like, they spike your blood sugar a bit quicker. Broccoli is low glycemic plus it's low carb in total. There's a similar thing with spinach and leafy greens. They're very low carb. Mushrooms are very low carb. Cauliflower is very low carb. Things like carrots and then beets for sure, absolutely. So what I like people doing is things like celery and zucchini and broccoli and cauliflower and kale and spinach, and finding these type of combinations, mushrooms, that build the plate up, that make you feel satiated and you find that you like the taste of, that don't add up to tons and tons of carbs. So the way that this is really easy, if you look at just breaking your day up into 2 meals and a very small snack or a small meal, or if you're doing 3 meals, 3 small meals, and if you don't have time for 3 small meals that you have pre-planned, 1 larger meal in the evening, and 2 types of snacks that fit within your goals during the day. And of course, this all depends on what you're trying to accomplish here. Like if you're trying to accomplish weight loss, a small breakfast, some nuts for lunch, and a larger dinner, that will work, because it's really easy to count your carbs. You can easily stay within your goals. And as long as you have enough healthy fats, your energy requirements will be met, because you'll be getting enough calories. Is it a teaspoon or a tablespoon of olive oil? 100 calories. It's easy. You can add them up. And it's probably really good for the heart. If you're familiar with the lectin guy, what's his name? Gundry. Gundry is a cardiologist down in Loma Linda. He did a study with his intervention patients. Plaque buildup in the heart. First one to show really a reduction in plaque in the heart. Mediterranean diet with 1 liter of olive oil per week. Just wow, it's so much olive oil. I tried it, it's really hard. I got to half, but it's one of the only things I've seen that has shown a reduction in plaque buildup, because they do follow-up CT scans. They do follow-up scans. And olive oil had no impact on the advancement of plaque buildup. And in fact, this study was able to show a reduction, and they followed an naturopathic approach, because they were doing like polycolcinol or some antioxidants that naturopaths use a lot, which was awesome. So, but yeah, tons and tons of olive oil to get your calories up. So this is just a little example. What I really want to share with you is, like, if you're interested in this, there's a few ways of tracking. You can use MyFitnessPal, that app, and you can plug in what you ate, and if you scroll to the bottom and press nutrition, it'll say how many grams of carb you have. There's a new one out called Keto Tracker or something, where you just press the plus and you talk into it and tell it what you ate, and it tells you how many carbs you ate. So you don't have to type, you just talk. But they're charging like $10 a month, which I think is crazy. But for 1 month, it might be worth it for some people. For me, I like going to Google and saying, how many carbs in this? And it just says, 1 cup of this has this many carbs. It's kind of at the top of everything. It's all there. So if you're a mono food eater, or if you have like a really basic diet that you're following, you can easily calculate this. You have to put in about an hour of work to figure it out, and then you'll be set for life. Then you'll know. So fruit is still available for most of my patients who are going very low carb. They're having blueberries. For people who are doing this moderate suggestion that I would consider as a health benefit, we should all be considering at 100, you can still have fruit as long as you only have grain one other time. So let's say you have oatmeal in the morning, or you have rice at dinner, or you have pasta for lunch, you have a slice of toast. You can do that once, then you can have one piece of fruit, and then you build the rest of the day around colorful fruits and vegetables. Fats like avocado and oils, and then you round out your healing with protein and make sure you're getting the right amount. That's important. Any questions about this? Figuring it out for yourself?
So fruit juice, like pomegranate juice.
Yeah, fruit juice is a really tricky one because I have always been for it. I'm for smoothies. Fruit has fiber components surrounding the sugar that slows the absorption. So smoothies are okay because it slows the fiber. But 100% fruit juice is implicated in this cancer study I was mentioning, where it made no difference whether the sugar was coming from pop or fruit juice. As soon as it hit that 10 gram per 100 mil mark per day, the rate of cancer went up.
Even pomegranate juice, like which is supposed to be hard health.
Honestly, it just said 100% fruit juice, so it didn't say specifically pomegranate juice in this study. But yeah, pomegranate juice.
It turns to sugar. It's just like pure sugar with nothing to.
It still spikes the blood sugar. What I would do is prick your finger at 30 minutes and see what happens. And if it's like above 7 at 30 minutes, that might not be something that would be helpful following up a diet like this. But yeah, so pomegranate juice and beetroot juice is the same thing. Beetroot juice has a really great benefit for the cardiovascular system. It brings blood pressure down. And we're not thinking about insulin when we're doing that. We're thinking about just the effect on blood pressure. And athletes have improved performance when they do it.
What about this patch thing that you're wearing? Can you throw a patch on at 30 minutes?
You can. Well, you can wear it for 2 weeks. Anybody can wear them. You don't have to be diabetic. You only have to be diabetic to get it for free. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way that they're sold is you get a unit for $50, and then for 2 weeks of testing, it's $100. Yeah. So even for people who don't have diabetes, unfortunately, I can't give them for free. But I think it's really nice to see. You could I'm writing prescriptions for people to get them, and for $150 for 2 weeks, you can see exactly how everything you consume impacts you. It stores 8 hours worth of data, so you don't have to scan it 3 times a day to get the full day's worth. But you can scan as much as you want. Like it's so amazing. It's like if we just go like this, we just press fast, or we just press scan, and we go like this, and there's a little thing in my arm, 5.5, just like that. It's amazing. Yeah. So you can see I went above 7 this morning, and I don't know why.
Can you do that with an iPad?
With an iPad?
With a phone?
With an iPad. I think so. They have an app for an iPad. But it comes with a little device. You don't even need a phone. Yeah, it comes with a device. And it's great. So the goal for today is how do we make it easy, right? Like tracking, I think, is easy. But for a lot of people, they don't want to count. And that's totally fine, too. For weight loss, what we like to do is we like to not have grains at night. And we like to fast for 13 hours. Because then at least we know that the second half of the day is low carb, very low carb. If the dinner is just a salad 6 nights a week, that's a low carb day for sure, because it's hard to eat too many carbs for breakfast and lunch unless you're a big fruit person or if you're a junk food person. So most snacking occurs like after dinner or in the afternoon. That's when we have our chips and our ice cream and things. If you're not having carbs after 4 p.m., the likelihood of you being low carb is pretty good. So counting, not always completely necessary. The diet focus should be vegetables, fats, and proteins, and all this really means is no potatoes and no grains and no rice mostly, and that will get you close to this range. And if you're mindful of the numbers, you'll get there easily. Avoid at all costs liquid sugar. I can't stress that enough.
With liquid sugar, you mean sugary drinks?
Yes, anything. So if I have a 4 gram per tablespoon coffee creamer, like it's all called almond coffee creamer, it takes it right up. Like a kombucha would have 10 and a pop has 35, and that's kind of the scale, grams. And those are kind of outside of everything we discussed because they shoot the blood sugar up right away. So if you're exercising, you can have 40 grams of sugar right before, and you'll burn it. But if you're just sitting around, it'll be in there, you'll get an insulin spike, it'll take a while to come down, and that the negatives will be occurring. Yeah, so liquid sugar, absolutely bad.
Does wine fit into the liquid sugar?
Wine, it depends. Like red wine is usually 3 grams per glass, which is low. And for me, if I'm taking it over an hour, that's totally different than me chugging that coffee.
Yeah.
So they all have different sweetness levels. Dry white wine would be lower than sweet white wine.
Yeah.
And I'm most familiar with red wine because that's what I consume.
I like to.
3 grams per glass. So if we're having 2 or 3 glasses, we're still below that 10 gram mark. Pretty nice. Yeah. Red wine.
What about the, the low carb, the impact on hormones like adrenals and stuff? Because now there's several people on we should increase the carbs at night. Like there's an impact on the hormones?
There is. Like whenever you cut your calories significantly, you run the risk of having low hormones in general. But if you're supporting it with enough fats, you should be able to make enough. So there's that impact. The other thing is when you go into ketosis, like if you go really low, like below 50 or 35, somewhere in that range, the adrenaline and cortisol come up, which in this axis of thyroid, female hormones, adrenals can really mess things up if you're just flooded with adrenaline. So I did keto for only 5 days, and which is not a good enough test, but I had palpitations. Like I'm like, whoa, but I'm a high energy guy anyways. And I have a history of anxiety, so it's easy for me to get the adrenaline up, no problem. But when I go very low carb, I'm feeling it. And the effect in females would be more pronounced because their connection between thyroid and estrogen is like, it's tough. So hormone imbalances disrupt thyroid function, and females notice that mostly because of the impact of estrogen on metabolized cells by thyroid. Yeah, so adrenaline impacts all of that, and adrenaline will go up. Yeah, will go up. And then if you're very low calorie, DHEA, the other hormone, will be very low. Estrogen will be very low. Progesterone will be very low. A lot of people, when they do fasting, for example, or if they like really cut their diet, they'll miss periods. Because hormones are just too low. So cautious. Medically supervised if you're cutting the calories back big time. But I don't think that the moderate low carb, like the 60 to 100, I don't think it's that worrisome. But it's case by case. Like if you notice your anxiety goes up, it was this. If that's the only thing you did, yeah, for sure.
I found that salt helped with that. When I first went low carb,
Nice.
I would wake up with palpitations, and I was talking to somebody who had experience, and they said salt.
Definitely.
Just up the salt, because your kidneys just flush it away when you go low carb.
Absolutely. So that's why we're having this group, because that's a really good point. Like, I get cramps. Will get cramps in my legs. So I was doing magnesium.
Yeah, I do magnesium too.
And I feel like if I had started out with the salt or the magnesium, then you're right, I probably wouldn't have had the cardiovascular impact and maybe not the adrenaline impact. You're so right.
To me, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and my heart would be going like this, and I didn't know what it was till I found out it was salt, and that really did the trick.
Gosh, good for you.
I put salt in my water. Some people don't like that.
Well, it's a tricky thing, you know, like we're all trying to avoid salt at all costs.
And salt is essential to life.
I know, it's really tough. It was hard to get that point across, so thank you. I appreciate that. So mitigating the side effects.
Salt, I found out in the army, we're doing a super long competition, and we won the championship for the whole country. But
Whoa.
anyway, it was, and I finished. I've been sweating like that. They gave me a couple of pills on the way. I don't know what, some energy pill. But when I come back, my legs were so cramped that for 24 hours the cramp would not.
Oh my
just
gosh.
Painful.
Awful. Holy smokes.
Because I sweated out.
Right.
Whatever was in the body.
That's intense.
And now the same thing is that when I get cramps, I put some crystal salt on my tongue, and that makes it almost instantly go away.
Good for you. Holy smokes. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, wow. The kidneys are so sensitive to these changes, you know. Like, I was reading something this morning about how if you do this for a while, they start to adapt and they get better at it. Yeah. But in these intense exercises or prolonged sweating, they can't adapt. It's way too much. So even if I was going from like probably 200, 300 grams of carbs per day down to keto, I couldn't even move. I was so cramped up. It's awful. sort of. And I was like telling people to do it. So yeah, you have to be careful, you know? You have to be careful. So CGM stories, I already told you about my carb load. Carb load crushes it. So you can't track insulin this way, but I bet you it's high for a while. Different. And exercise brings it down really quickly and helps you have that low carb, low sugar you need when you're sleeping. So there's like no impact of hyperinsulinemia while you're sleeping. Last night I did a trial for all of us, which was eat 5 spelt chocolate chip cookies to see what would happen and see how it would disrupt my sleep. And what we have here is a simple look. I'll show you the daily graph because this is crazy. So what we did here, I don't know if it turns, but you'll see this spike. The first spike is dinner. The second spike is 5 cookies. And then the big drop that you see where it goes really far down is 20 minutes on the spin bike, really pushing it, sweating. You'll see that's at 11 p.m. And then you'll see it starts to go up at midnight, right after I finish on the bike, get in bed, crawl in bed, and then all night we're high. All night we're like 6.0. I'm sleeping there, that's like 2 a.m. and it's up around 7.
Because of the cookies.
Yeah. But it went down from the exercise. And then when I finished exercise, it went back up. And all night it's like this, and then it kind of goes down. That's a disrupted sleep. Absolutely. So my point in doing this is 6 a.m. This is before I wake up. It's above 6. If I had gone to Life Labs, they tell me I'd have diabetes. They said, did you fast for 10 hours? Well, it's only been 8. It's been 9. Has it been 10? No. Maybe it should be 12 hours. Because at 12 hours, it's back to normal if I hadn't eaten breakfast. So you see that it's very sensitive. I know I've talked a lot longer than before, than I said I would, but I think it's important to review these type of cases. Eating before bed is really bad for you, and especially if it's high sugar.
I think you told us not to eat for 12 hours, 16 hours. We eat at 3, 4 o'clock and nothing until we come back from swimming from 6 to 7 and we eat a big breakfast at 7.
That's been shown to be longevity promoting. The guy's name is Sachin Panda. The animals live a really long time when they fast that long. The human trials are going to be very similar. No more cookies.
What do you mean, no more cookies?
Okay. So any comments here? Okay. So I don't know if any of you had success with low carb that if you want to share anything. I know I've shared a lot about myself, but it's kind of like this group is for all of us. You know, I want people to come who have diabetes. If you know people who have diabetes, I want them to do 2 weeks with me. All they need to do is sit down for one visit and I'll give them a free one. Otherwise, this is about all of us. Okay? So if you've had success, feel free to share it on the Meetup group. You can write in the little notes. Share what you've tried. Share what's working for you.